Never forget why I'm here. To help people.
You'll spend a lot of time fighting in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. You'll be fighting the petty thugs of New York City, fighting the annoyingly awkward controls used for web swinging, fighting one of the most irritating cameras to appear since the introduction of 3D gaming, and generally fighting the will not to turn off your Xbox 360 and do something a bit more entertaining. You know what? It's easy enough to blame the Batman Arkham games for this. We've harboured pretty lofty expectations for licensed games ever since they released, but there's simply no excuse for barely competent video games in this day and age. Beanox has delivered one of the worst Spider-Man games in recent history. It fails to not only replicate the glory of 2004's Spider-Man 2, but it still succeeds in falling short of every other Spider-Man game the studio's delivered in the last 4 years. Amazing Spider-Man 2 uses the recent Mark Webb directed sequel as a starting point before spiraling out of control into a narrative and gameplay mess of epic proportions. The time's going to be spent swinging around a New York stripped full of visual interest, personality and splendour, stopping on frustratingly frequent occasion to tackle side quests and main missions. It gets boring quickly. The swing mechanics fail to replicate the simplicity and nuance of the aforementioned Spider-Man 2. While the combat is another area where Beanox's game falls resoundingly flat. It's clearly based on the silky smooth combat of the Arkham games, but it lacks the fluidity that allows you to really revel in taking down the bad guys. In Spidey's, it's a continuous case of mashing X and occasionally hitting Y to dodge heavily televised counterattacks. Sadly, the story missions don't fare much better either. Unless being pushed through a gauntlet of tedium is your idea of an evening well spent. Fetch quests, repetitive missions, and uninteresting combat that borders on broken. One of Spider-Man 2's more interesting mechanics is morality. As Spider-Man follows the game's laughably bad story, he has the option to rescue trapped people, defeat enemies, stop face-off between the police and armed thugs, defuse bomb, and generally be an all-round good citizen. Succeed, and you can go to bed at night pleased you've done a good job. Fail, or ignore the crime, and your menace meter will rise, causing the city's armed guards to continually attack you until you return to hero status. In practice it's a nice idea, but you often start a new part of the story with your notoriety raised, meaning plenty of mundane acts of rescue and fighting to bring it back down again. There's further misguided gameplay mechanics with sections that focus on you investigating New York's crime spree as Peter Parker. You occasionally get to wander around taking photos while questioning some of the heroes and villains of Spider-Man's world. Again, it's a nice idea in theory, but the dialogue here is trite, while you're virtually losing nothing, aside from having to not endure the poor voice acting, by not actually asking anything. It's another pointless diversion. There's nothing amazing about Activision's latest attempt to give Spider-Man an entertaining digital outing. In fact, there's barely anything serviceable about it at all. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is a dull, uninteresting take of one of Marvel's most interesting and complex characters. Can't blame the Parker luck on this one, folks. The problems run deeper than superhero superstition.